I think one thing that I come across a lot is people having these thoughts in their heads, these negative thoughts, like particularly women who are maybe still in corporate America or have a boss. They're worried that they're not, I really want to do something else, but I'm never going to make the kind of money I'm making here, or I'm not qualified. It's that little thought in the head, because I truly believe that we all have the capacity to make as much money as you want or need. I really do believe that. And I don't say it from some hokey pokey perspective. I really do believe it.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 215 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today I got to sit down with Alison Hall, and she's a change agent coach. She really helps women thrive through transitions, and she does that with this incredible corporate strategist background and a CPA certification, right? I mean, my socks were rolling up and down. This is so powerful. And we sat down together to really discuss what women need to know before big changes, whether it be divorce, or maybe they can't work anymore, or a spouse can't work anymore. What do we need to know? How do we deal with this? What's at stake here? And how can we find the answers? And what I loved about this conversation is it's very straightforward. You're going to get the answers you're looking for if you are trying to figure out what you need to know about your financial situation before you make any big moves. This is going to be an episode you're going to want to listen to. Alison is the founder of Change Agent Coaching for Women and co-founder of the Boldest Me, a personal development and empowerment brand for women affected by divorce. After a successful corporate career spanning 25 years, she pivoted to entrepreneurship, establishing multiple thriving businesses. Drawing on her extensive background as a CPA and corporate strategist, Alison now guides women through the life transitions in the pursuit of fulfilling lives. Her mission is to ignite confidence in women, helping them discover their strengths, unearth their purpose. And she wants us to shed the burdens of societal expectations. I think that's my favorite part. And those of self-doubt and burnout. One of her favorite quotes that she's been known to say is, "It's never too late to chase your dreams. With just one life to live, it's time to unleash your potential." So, as I said, this is a really straightforward conversation. We went right in it. What do we need to know? What are the first steps? What can someone do right now? You're going to love this one. Pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Alison, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this is going to be exciting.
I'm very excited. I think we were chatting off camera, you guys, before we hit record, and these are two aligned humans right now who are out to change the world. And we're really excited about it, in case you can't tell. But before we jump into all of the gooey goodness that Alison has for us, Alison, my question for you at this moment in time and the way the world is today, of all the things on the planet that you could be doing, why is this what you do? Why is this what you chose to do?
Yeah. Like so many people, I didn't come straight to where I am now. It kind of evolved. But it's just, you've heard of Ikigai, right? That marriage of what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the world needs, and what somebody's willing to pay you for. Mm-hmm. I didn't know about that until later, but I know about it now. And that describes it. I'm a finance geek. I'm an accounting person. I'm good with numbers. I had a whole corporate career doing all those sorts of things, but I wasn't working individually with people. And I finally figured out that's what I was missing. I had a lot of friends who ended up in divorce situations, life transitions, and I was helping them using my skills and talents to help them get through divorces. And then I thought, well, let's kind of hone in on this. There's a definite need. I have a passion for it. And then I discovered that in addition to the need for financial help, they also needed coaching to move from one life stage to another. Like, how do I go on and create what I need to have enough money to support myself? Maybe I need to start a business, things like that. That's how I ended up where I am now. I'm so passionate about helping women get from one place in life to another, because I've never been divorced, but I understand how devastating it can be. So that's how I landed where I am now. And I'm just so thrilled to have found my little niche,
Yeah. Yeah. And and I actually want to really acknowledge you for that, because I know, look, I'm a business coach, right? I'm like, niche down. And people are like, No, right. It's like really scary for people until we really get into it. And they're like, oh my God, this is so much easier to market. This is so much easier to sell. And I'm so on fire about it because they really kind of planted their flag in that one place that just speaks to them so deeply. And it sounds like, that's really what you've done, which is so impressive.
It's true. I mean, I don't know if it's impressive, but it's absolutely true because probably like you and so many people who move from, having bosses to doing our own thing, when you first kind of launch out, you feel like you can do all these different things and you never want to let go of, the niche thing. I'm just so huge, hugely support that because you really do have to niche down smaller than you think because we continue to try to cover too much ground. I started out with the, coaching, trying to cover all of life's transitions. Well, I don't know about all of life's transitions. And so maybe that doesn't 100% make sense. But there are some transitions that come together kind of naturally, like, again, divorce, maybe losing your career or being downsized or burned out. A lot of those things often converge. Our relationships and our professional lives are, very interweaved. And those are the types of people that I work with, but not, there's just some life transitions that maybe I'm not equipped to work with. And I had to tell myself that, I had to be my own keeper.
Yeah. And it can get, I don't know. I mean, I joke around about entrepreneur porn all the time, but it's like, it's out there so much, it can get addictive and you think, oh, I can do that. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I could do that. Oh, I could. And it, I think it takes, is discipline the right word? I think it is. It takes a little bit of discipline. And I love what you just said, like a little bit of self-checking to be like, yo, we're going to pick one of these. We're going to go all in. And you probably could do several more, but to really go in on one, it just helps people know how to refer to you.
And it's okay to have, I feel as if people often feel like you're picking this thing for the rest of your forever. Maybe you'll do this for a while and maybe it'll ebb and flow into something else. And, leave your mind open to that. Put that off to the side. It's on your sideboard sheet. We can get to that in our, next iteration.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Just because we're not doing it right now doesn't mean we're never going to do it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I think in this sorry, I'm snapping, but like this quick path, like fast paced world that we live in, I think people do have a little bit of a fear. If I don't do it right now, I'm never going to do it. Like, oh my God, like there's that panic.
And fear of missing out on everything, right? Yeah.
Everything, anything. What are you eating? How are you doing? What does that shake? I don't know. What's going on? It's like, oh my God, it's going to be okay if we all don't do all the things all the time. Yeah. So I think it's really important. I love that you have this finance background. And so I just want to dive into that a little bit. I'm going to ask you a question. And you guys, she did not know I was going to ask her this. But I always have when people really, because I've always been scared of money, right? Up until I really did the work to launch this business and start working on money mindset and doing all those things, being raised so incredibly poor, it seemed confusing and scary. And I was raised around the conversation that only crooks have money, like that kind of that energy. What is one thing out of all the things that you learn in working with money and getting these incredible certifications that you have? What's one thing you wish people understood better about money?
Oh, wow. Well, you mentioned mindset, money mindset. And, I think one thing that I come across a lot is people having these thoughts in their heads, these negative thoughts, like particularly women who are maybe still in corporate America or have a boss. They're worried that they're not, I really want to do something else, but I'm never going to make the kind of money I'm making here, or I'm not qualified. It's that little thought in the head, because I truly believe that we all have the capacity to make as much money as you want or need. I really do believe that. And I don't say it from some hokey pokey perspective. I really do believe it. And so this sounds like just the smallest bit of information, but if people could just, if you can say to yourself, oh gosh, I can't, then why can't you just flip it and say, I can, and think of all the ways that you can do something? That's really, honestly, that's what I come across the most when I'm working with people, particularly people who are terrified of, fear is limiting, right? We all know that. So when you're afraid, and then fear just sort of takes over everything. I'm afraid I'm not going to make enough money. I'm afraid my kids aren't going to eat. I'm afraid. And so you make decisions based on those limited beliefs. But when you take all of those negative thoughts and just practice thinking about an equal opposite positive thing that I could say here? Well, I'm a pretty smart person. I could probably figure it out. Well, there's nothing here there's nothing really in my way other than me, right? So I could probably get a better job. Maybe I could start a business doing what it is I love. It takes a lot of practice. And it sounds hokey pokey, but it's not. It's all in our heads. That's honestly, I maybe didn't answer your money question per se, but that's what I found to be the thing that holds most people back.
No, I think that's right. It's about, I say all the time, I have like this little like slogan I say all the time is that success is 80% mindset and 20% strategy. But I love what you said because it's like if we flip that question, right? I couldn't possibly. If we flip that into, but if I did, how would I do it? That's literally that, like one little flip. We coaches, right? Like that is one of the most powerful flips we can make because it allows the brain to start working as opposed to I couldn't possibly or I can't, that shuts the brain down. And there's nowhere to go from there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually really cool. And what attracted you to those roles? Like why becoming a CPA? Like what was it for you that really attracted you to getting these certifications and doing this?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm kind of a nerd, so, and I love learning things that I can kind of control, so financial things, it's finite, there are yes answers and no answers, and there are strategies and ways to do things. And I love all of that. I'm a certified tax planner. That sounds so nerdy, but it's so fun because you're helping people kind of strategize and work against the man and, find ways to keep your own money. And I just love all those. And the crazy thing is that when I was a kid, I really wasn't fantastic at math. So it's not about the numbers part of it per se. It's the strategy. It's just finding different ways. The certified divorce financial analyst. I mean, who knew? I certainly didn't until I came across it. Who knew that there's somebody out there who just helps people get through the money part of divorce? And I only work with women because in the majority of divorces, women are the ones who are going to maintain the most responsibility for children, households and things like that, but who come out the worst in settlements, mainly for lack of knowledge, right? And fear, right? Fear that something's going to, if they don't just give in and acquiesce, then something horrible is going to happen. But when you're informed and you really know that there are solutions out there, I mean, it is so gratifying to me when somebody says, oh my gosh, I really can blah, 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 fill in the blank, just because they learned something or, I was able to impart some information. So long-winded answer for a very short question. But yeah, I found things to do in the corporate world that allowed me to use skill sets that I had and be successful. But like I said, the part I was missing was that individual person, like helping individual people. It's one thing to help a corporation. I mean, I guess I helped the bottom line, but it's, I don't know, it wasn't all that fulfilling, quite frankly, So now I get to do something I enjoy, but I also feel fulfilled. Yeah.
Well, you're raising something. I don't know if you knew this, but I actually ended my marriage in 2022. And I am so grateful for all of the people who came out and were like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? Right. And that was all on the emotional side, which was so fantastic. But then there was like the money piece. And I was so grateful that I'd studied so much and I knew so much and I'd learned how to communicate to the point I could ask for what I needed. But what is one thing, getting back one thing, you wish that the women you work with, what's one question they're not asking that could really make a big difference?
Question. I don't know. What I find is that a lot of women that I work with don't know anything about their finances. Maybe they pay the bills, but they don't know what's going on in the background. Very often they don't know what benefits their spouse has. They don't know their rights about those benefits. They don't know that, that the marital assets belong to everybody. I think it's just education that we get into these roles. This is what I'll say. I wish more women, whether they're married, single, when you're single, you kind of have to manage all your things, but I wish more women wouldn't give up, rights to information that they are equal parties in everything because you never know what's going to happen. It's not just divorce. I mean, sometimes your spouse might become, incapacitated or whatever, right? That happened to my mother. My father became incapacitated and I had to step in. And she's a brilliant woman. She's an attorney. I mean, she was before she retired. But she didn't know anything about the finances at all. So again, not answering your question, but I don't think any woman should be wandering around not having full knowledge of all aspects of the household finances. It's not that hard. It really isn't. Things are scary when you don't know, right? You're afraid of the unknown. But once you do, and you're like, okay, all right, I got this, So that's my answer.
Yeah. And the fear, I always say fear makes us really dumb.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I like that. It does.
Really does. I mean, that's by design, right? If the tiger's chasing, we all know that scenario, right? Like you should not be thinking, you should be reacting, right? Like turn that thing off because we need to reserve energy. That makes sense. But in day-to-day life now, we're just dumb and it's not exactly helpful. Yeah, I think that's right.
And you have access to so much information now that maybe 30 years ago, it would be more difficult. You might have to actually go to a company to ask questions. You can do all this stuff online now. And I would say, I also talk to people now, work with women who maybe have had a divorce or a bad breakup or whatever. And in planning for future life, we're also planning, how are you going to do things differently in terms of relationships? And that's one of the things. I don't delve too deeply into the love aspect of it. I'm more the practical person, What are you going to do differently? What questions are you going to ask? What type of person? Because that's really important. How I don't know whether your divorce was amicable or not amicable, but we've seen so many that are not.
Yeah.
And this person at the end was always there. There are questions you could have asked to find out, I wonder how this would end. If it ended, what type of person is this? There's just so many questions you could ask going forward, things you wouldn't have thought of if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through.
Gosh, that's so interesting. Yeah, no. And I, like I said, I was lucky, right? I mean, there was a lot, I worked very hard on communication and those sorts of things. So some skill, but mostly luck, right? But asking those questions early on and watching how other humans react. But I think also you really hit on something important. And there was a book, oh gosh, forgive me. I can't pull the author's name out of my head right now, but the name of the book was The Feminine Mistake. Not the feminine mistake.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And it was that women release all financial information or all financial day-to-day know-how, even if they're paying the bills to a romantic partner, and that can leave women feeling like they don't know what's happening. So I think there's two things I'm hearing in what you're saying that I think are so important, because I know really your mission is to empower women and have them see, look, these are numbers. This is just data. We can figure this out and people will react how they react. We can't control that piece, but we can control the knowledge that we have. And there's two things. It's sort of piercing the illusion. I hear this a lot from women. I'd love to know what you think. There's piercing through this illusion of, oh my gosh, if I get divorced, I'm going to be broke. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, that's an illusion, because this is a marital estate. Everything in here belongs to both of you. That's an illusion, but that goes the other way too. Like I've worked with women who maybe their husbands are gamblers, right? And she's like, oh, I control everything. And I'm like, that's an illusion. Half of it is his. Like, you're not, like, it's so interesting. We can go both ways with it. So really sort of, I think what I'm hearing is being profoundly related to reality. Mm-hmm. And not being so afraid that it's like some magical thing that's just going to get decided. It's like, no, there's actually laws in place, and it's really both of you.
Exactly. And when you can advocate for yourself, the more you know, I mean, gosh, it reminds me of, those little Saturday morning things.
Yes,
the more you know.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's true. These things exist for a reason. Yeah. The more you know, the more you can advocate for yourself. And your attorney, I mean, I know we didn't mean to turn this into a forced conversation, but your attorney may or may not be well advised in financial matters, right? And the only person who can really do that 100% is you. You may not hire somebody like me. You may not be able to afford to, or you may not need to, right? But if you have all the information yourself, then you can advocate for yourself and you can tell the attorney what direction you want to go in, And divorce law, it sounds so mystical and difficult. It's pretty much set in stone. Every state has it written out on a website. You can go and read it and you can see what the rules are. I mean, that's what I find a lot of women are just, you talked about fear. it's the head in the sand thing, just afraid to even look. They want somebody else. And I don't want you coming to me to hand over responsibility. This is we're walking down the road together, and then you're going to go off on your little ship, fully empowered. So that's my goal. And I know that's the way you feel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what knowledge do we need? I think that's why I keep coming back to, what are the questions that people need to ask? What really is the most empowering step someone can take? And I think that's really the best next follow-up question. So let's say someone's listening, and I'll be honest, like, I love what you said at the beginning, that our primary relationships and our businesses are so intertwined. And I don't think I've ever had a one-on-one client, or even in my group programs, I'm trying to think, making sure I tell the truth. I actually don't think I've ever had a student or client where the primary romantic relationship didn't come up, because it's so important in how we view ourselves in the world, and the identity crisis that can come. Like, well, but if I'm married and then I'm single, what does that mean about me? Or if I'm single, then what does that mean about me? Like, those sorts of things come in. How do I stand up that way? So I know there are women listening right now who might be in a situation where they're like, but I just don't know what to do first when it comes to the money inside of a primary relationship. What would your advice be about the very first step someone could take to make sure they understand their money?
And it kind of goes back to what we were saying. You have to be willing to pull your head up out of the sand and acknowledge that you don't know. You just don't know. And then then it becomes very easy. It's like anything else. Like, if you go into a new job, we've all had new jobs where we probably weren't qualified, but we got hired. Great. But you have to go in there and figure out, somebody might give you a checklist of things to do, but you don't really understand what you're doing. But you're not going to just stay naive. You're going to figure it out, right? So it's the same thing with your finances. Start simply. You probably have a credit card. Okay. You probably might not know what the credit limit is. How many credit cards are there? And it's very easy now. There's so many different places where you can find your credit information so easily online now. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be you could only get your credit information once a year, for crying out loud. Now you can get it every day if you want to. But how many credit cards do we have? If you're married, particularly, you may not know. And to your point, this is all everybody's problem. All of the money belongs to everybody. So does all the debt. So finding things like that, just make yourself a check sheet. Heck, you can email me. I'll send you a check sheet of things to look for. Look for all of the bank accounts. Look for all of the creditors, not just credit cards, but who else do we owe money to? You're going to have to dig around. You might have to dig around in the desk to find documents. You might have signed. Think back. Did I sign some things? Do we have a loan out? Again, you can look on your credit report, request the credit report online, and it will show you all the things that you're responsible for. And I think that's the first place to start. Other things get a little more complicated when I mention things like, what kinds of benefits do we have? If you're thinking about divorce, or you're planning for it, or you're just planning for your life, whoever your partner may have benefits like, travel points, things like that. Those are partially yours as well. I think just doing the deep dive, to me, it's kind of fun, but it might not be fun to everybody. But once you have it down, that feeling of empowerment, I know about my life. And even if you're not getting divorced, I know about my life. I feel as if anything happened, I could move forward. It's really difficult when something happens on a dime. Like I said, when I had to go in and handle my mother, I didn't know anything about my parents' finances. Why would I? Right? But I had to go in and figure it out. And you don't want someone to have to do it for you, nor do you want to have to do it on the fly when something has come up. So, yeah.
So doing that anyway, right, is really a great idea. And I remember, so I teach my students, I have a credit card eliminator that I love using with people. And it would be Saturday mornings when I created it and came up with it. It was because I was in debt, right? And I was like, how do I do this? What do I do? And so when I did sit down and do that every Saturday morning, God, did that feel good. Even though I was managing where the debt was and how much it had come down and what was happening, right? And so you could think, yeah, that would feel really good to watch those numbers change. But I think it comes along the lines of what you measure moves. And so I think for any of us, right? If you're looking at making big life changes or something's happening, and I love what you said, like someone could get a diagnosis and maybe they can't work anymore. Like there's so much going on that if you just know where it is and you understand this kind of philosophical truth that what we measure moves, you want to know what it is anyway. Even if things are great, you want to know where everything is.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. And that's also important, when we talk about life transitions, it makes it easier when even if it's not a bad transition, if you're just maybe wanting to move from corporate to, having your own business or working with a partnership or something like that. If you already know where all the moving parts are, that's half the battle right there. Because if you don't know what really understand your financial situation, you really don't know what it is that we need to make in order to survive. And that's when people get into that sort of paralysis, analyzing all the things except for the important things. And then you just can't move forward really effectively.
Yeah. The information empowers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all it is, not being afraid to have information. It's so interesting because it's like a little door opens, somebody gave me the key and you open the little door and you're like, oh, it's full of balloons. Yay. We're so scared to open the little door. And then on the other side it's great.
Yeah. So really, I think what we're coming down to, like at the end of all of this, right, all this gooey goodness, what it really comes down to is don't be afraid to know your numbers. Don't be afraid to know where things stand. Don't be afraid to look and find. And I love what you said about finding those documents and putting those together. And remembering every time we do that, like I think for everyone, it's a little scary to start. It's like, oh my gosh, it can feel like this big mountain of stuff. But it's almost like anything we do, right? If someone wants to write a book, sit down and write like the outline for the first 2 chapters. All of a sudden, when you sit down, it seems really hard, but then all of a sudden it starts to get kind of exciting and it starts to kind of snowball and it gets easier and easier and you feel better and better and better the more that you do it.
And to your point, I'm sure you talk to your clients about this all the time, not setting your goals too high. Maybe today, if you're really nervous and you just feel as if you have no financial acumen, today I'm just going to find all the credit cards. I find if the to-do list is too long, one is much less likely to achieve much of anything because it's just overwhelming. Just pick one thing, get a win, pick something else, get another win. Yeah, you kind of build your confidence.
Here, man. That's it. The whole thing right there. I say that to everybody. It's like, but I don't know where to start. I'm like the one little tiny step, just one little tiny thing. That's all we need to do. And then it builds from there. That's so great. Thank you so much for that. So listen, if someone's listening and they're like, I need me some more. Some more Alison in my life. Like, where would people find you? Where's the best place for people to look?
The best place to find me is just email me. I respond to all emails. I am an old-fashioned email person. I'm also on LinkedIn, but if you just want to communicate with me, come to my website or just reach me at Alison with 1 L at changeagentcoaching.com.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, you guys, we are going to have those links underneath this video if you're watching on YouTube or in the show notes if you're listening in. Alison, I really want to thank you for the conversation today. I think the small steps women can take to be empowered, especially around money when life is changing, is just so, so important. And I personally want to really thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. This was so much fun. I get pretty passionate about the topic. So thank you for letting me be me.
You got it.